Welcome to Roopa's Six Questions for Authors. It's a real pleasure for me to welcome Gina Vild to today's edition. Hi, Gina.
Hello, it's so wonderful to be here, and thank you for putting such essential information about books into the world. We'd be a better people and a better country if we all read more. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Gina. And I have to say, Gina is an absolute treasure. She has written multiple books. Her second book will be coming out shortly. It's Buoyant, The Art and Science of a Resilient Life. In addition to presenting the science of thriving in the face of life's hardship, both small and large, her book features stories of those who share their wisdom, having navigated some of life's most difficult experience. There's also exercises, right? And some ancient wisdom, poetry. Like her first book was on the topic of happiness and finding a life of purpose. So an amazing human and writer. I am Roopa Krishnan. I'm a Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer by day, and now an author of business books and crime fiction the rest of the time. This program and I am inspired by the questions I hear from audiences when I go on my book tours. And so this is a podcast about that intersection of analytical rigor and creative storytelling. And Gina, your books are all about that. So tell us about your books. Tell us a little more.
Well, I write because my goal is to really help people overcome difficulties that they're having, but really understand how short life is, and we write our own stories. And so why not write a story where you pursue happiness and you are resilient and you don't allow yourself to be weighted down by difficulties? Because we all face adversity in terms of personal lives, employment, with our families, in every aspect of life. We have loss through death. No one escapes that. And so, why is it some people thrive and some people are able to move on and others really get stuck? And so, the goal is to really look at the science, the neuroscience, the psychology, and the examples from other people who do it well by way of inspiration.
That's amazing. And, so much for us to learn, I think, in these tumultuous times, right? Well, I'm going to switch tacks on you and go into what I call my inquisitions. I have my six questions. So let's get started. So, my first question, I call it the origin spark, right? Every writer has that first idea, the one that made them think, I've really got to put it down on paper. What was that spark for you?
Well, if I could step back even a little bit more, I had a habit when I was young that the night before my birthday, I would always write about what I hoped for the next year. The word manifesting never was in our vocabulary at that point. But the year I was 16, I actually envisioned a life as an adult because I was inching closer to being 18 and being off, in college and on my own. And I wrote about wanting to be an author and having books that I had written on the shelf behind my desk in the visual. And I went on with my life and did not write. I write for my job. I was marketing communications leadership, had roles at Harvard Medical School and Dana-Farber Cancer Institute and MIT and different places. But I really hadn't written. And I had been working with Dr. Sanjeev Chopra at Harvard Medical School and on a variety of projects. And one day he said to me, you should write a book with me. And I said, Sanjeev, you don't need me to write this book. You are quite proficient at writing. And he said, you once told me that you had a dream of being an author, and I want to help make that come true for you. And what was remarkable about that is that I never said it. I don't remember ever telling him, but I did. And so there was no question that what we wanted to write about was happiness because we wanted to put more joy into the world. And we really gravitated toward people who were joyful and try to learn from their experiences. And on resilience, I really felt the book sprang from me fully formed. I've had a lot of loss in my life, and I just wanted to be able to share what I had learned on that journey.
Indeed. And it is now sitting on my bedside table for me to read. So thank you for that. I mean, I think there's an element there of, the people who come into our lives at the absolute right times to get us going, correct? In my case, it was actually COVID that came into my life that got me going on my second book. But Talk to me now about what I call the process ritual. That's my second question. What does writing actually look like for you on a typical day? Not that romanticized version where, you put on your writing robe and go sit for 6 hours, but what does it really feel like?
It feels like you're bringing something forth from inside of you and committing it to paper or to a computer. And my process is I try to teach, now I'm retired now, and I try to work on writing as a job. So I'll have breakfast, I'll come up, and some days I'm quite proficient and I'm writing and writing and writing my heart out. And other days I'm thinking and stumbling or researching. But I try to end it around 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock if I'm on a roll. And it's really, I find good to have that kind of structure.
Nice, very nice. And then while you were working, did you have a time of day you would write?
I actually have a funny story to tell about that. No, that was a very different process because I had a job that was 24/7. I was the dean for external relations and communications at the Harvard Medical School, worked all the time, traveled internationally, had a large staff, was really busy. So when we were writing that book, I we would meet on the weekends and I would be assigned things to do and Sanjeev would have assignments. And I typically in the beginning came back without any of my assignments completed. And I would be so apologetic. And I'd be, oh, I had a crisis at work and I was traveling. I was in Dubai or whatever it was. And one day, Sanjeev said, my friend is coming over to fix my garage door and he'll be here when you arrive. And when I arrived, they sat me down at the dining room table and had an intervention with me. And they said, are you afraid you can't write this book? And I was like, no, of course not. And they said, are you afraid of success? His friend was a coach, a really amazing coach. And I said, no, but have you met me? Have you seen my life? It's so busy. I have so many moving parts. And Adrian Wilkins, the coach, said, I'm going to tell you something that's going to change your life. And it did in many, many ways. He said, I want you to learn meditation from Sanjeev's wife, Dr. Amita Chopra, when she teaches her next class. And I said, Adrian, with all respect, meditation is not going to give me more hours in the day. And he said, trust me. And until you can take this course, because she offers it to small groups every, few months, I want you to run. I was a runner then without headphones. And so I said, I can't run without headphones. I can't have nothing in my head. But I was going on vacation next week, held my headphones in my hand as I was running along the beach, and came back on the third day, wrote the entire outline in like 4 hours.
Wow. Yeah. Yes.
Then I learned meditation and the book flowed. And it changed my life. I wound up getting divorced about 5, 6 months later because I suddenly saw things that I had not seen, which I write a little bit about in the book. But that was the process, like meditation and being hyper focused. Do you meditate?
I do meditate. I'm not very good about sticking to a ritual around it, and which is part of what you need to do, right? So,
Yeah. But it was a really interesting experience. And now I find you can use it for any aspect of your life. And in Buoyant, I talk about the various forms of meditation. Sometimes it's knitting, right? Or
right.
it's mantra meditation, or there are many, many forms of meditation, forest bathing. But being clear and having your mind focused on what's important without all the noise is really a wonderful
No,
way to live life.
it's fabulous. And, the idea about taking those headphones out or maybe keeping them in but not playing anything, that feels like a very good idea to me right now. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Um, and, you talked a little bit about this sort of what I called question three, the day job tension, right? And you talk about sort of being in Dubai, etc. But there's a more sort of intellectual part of the tension, which is your professional life and writing live in your same head, right? So do you feel like the practice of writing helped you become different at the workplace and the other way around? Did your workplace inform your writing?
That's such a great question, Rupa. That's such a great question. Yes, and I don't see how it cannot because as you write, you're not only helping put information into the world, you're learning in the process. And I write for Psychology Today, and sometimes I write what I need to learn because then I do the research on different aspects of buoyancy or happiness. But Absolutely. It helped me see the world a little bit differently. And I think my professional life really helped me expedite my writing process. I didn't have time when I was working full time to really like rewrite a paragraph 15 times. And so you kind of hyper focused, and it was a really good process. When I was writing the second book, I didn't have that pressure. So it took probably twice as long because I overthought every single sentence.
The sort of the gift of the deadline, etc. Right? So,
Absolutely.
so talk to me. The fourth idea I have that I probe usually is about this idea of the abandoned idea, right? What's a book or a piece of writing you started, got kind of deep into, but then walked away from, and why?
I don't have that. I felt like Happiness, the first book, The Two Most Important Days, and Finding Your Purpose was just a story that just intuitively needed to be told. And then, as I said, Buoyant, I felt like it sprang from me fully formed. But I have an idea for a third book, on finding love late in life, that I think is interesting. So that may be an abandoned one if I don't pursue it. But right now, I'm thinking that might be a new topic,
Nice.
very different from the first two.
Again, I think an important one as we live longer, are much more thoughtful about what we want in our lives, right? So yeah. So fine. I talk about, you talk about the books you want, the happiness you're looking for, and that you write about. How do you think about the metric for your books? What is your shelf test? Some people, I think in the past it was all about the numbers, but I know for a fact that that's not what motivates me, right? So what about you?
Yeah, no, it's good. I was at a very large event this weekend for authors and soon to be authors, and it made me think about this very question. And what have found rewarding when I write, either my articles for Psychology Today or the first book, is when someone says to me or writes in a review on Amazon, someone I don't know, like, this helped me, this changed my life, this made me think about something from a different prism.
Mm.
And if I can do that with even a handful of people, I think it's a success. And finding that you're putting topics in the world that people maybe they don't agree with the approach, but they want to debate them, and it makes them think more deeply about it, and about their life story and how they're proceeding. How are they managing their thoughts?
Yeah.
And that's one of the chapters in the new book is how do we manage our thoughts? Because you choose what you put in your head every day of every second. You are the architect of your life. And being able to be conscious of that and changing it can change the entire direction of your life.
I'm literally taking down a note about you are the architect of your life because I feel like this is something, especially in the world of AI, we sometimes forget, right? So, yes, and
Did I
helping
tell
somebody
you
with that.
where that came from? It was a number of years ago. I have two children, and my son, I was complaining about something, and I think he was either in college, I think he was in college at the time, and I was complaining or moaning about something. And he said, Mom, if you don't like it, fix it. You're the architect of your life. And it was such an aha moment because I thought, well, you're right. If you have boundaries, you don't have to be in situations that you really don't relish. And you set the parameters. How do you spend your day? Who do you spend time with? That consciousness. And
Yeah.
it affects your outlook.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So the final one, and I suspect I know the answer to this, but the I call it the necessary lie because all writers sometimes have something, a belief about themselves or their reader or their process that probably isn't entirely true, but they keep it around just either to motivate themselves or to give themselves an excuse. What's yours? And I got the sense that the early in your career, it was about like I'm too busy, right? But what is it now? Or do you have one now?
Yeah, I think it's that you're absolutely right in the beginning, but I think the necessary lie is a little bit different than I think the direction of that. It's that when you tell a story about anything, if you're telling your story or you're telling someone else's story, it impacts everyone around them, right? So if I'm telling the story as I do a little bit about having the loss of my parents when I within 72 days when I was very young, or about a very horrific situation that I learned about my marriage after 28 years, I had to be very careful about the not the honesty so much, but how much detail and how broad that story is because it affects the lives of other people in my life,
Right.
my family, my friends, and I tell the story of 20 some people who've gone through some horrific situations in Buoyant. And even with that, we have to be careful because their story impacts their children and
Yeah.
people around them. And that's something that it's a trust that people put in you and a trust you have for yourself. So I don't know if that's a lie, but it is a qualifier about how open you are about the details of whatever you're writing.
Right. So it's a sort of the lie of omission, if you want to call it that, but a gentle one,
A lie
correct?
of, oh, I like that. Yes, exactly. It's the lie of omission.
Well, that those were my six questions, and I truly I look forward to Buoyant. I know that we all need buoyancy in our lives today, and so come back and talk about it when you're ready to. Yeah.
Thank you. I would love to. I'm
Thank you.
honored. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Roopa.
And to the viewer, please look check out Gina's details below. You can find out, links for buying the book. Hit subscribe, and I will see you all again soon. Thank
Thank
you.